Okay, thanks a lot, Kelvin, for joining the session. Actually, usually we do this during, like, let's say Saturday or Sunday morning. This is the first time, I think first time we do it at night now. I mean, for talk of sing song sessions. Yeah, I'll just kickstart the session by asking you to just introduce yourself. But I think this session is I think it should be more interactive. So if you guys have any question, feel free to ask. So yeah, first question is from me. Please, Kelvin, please introduce yourself.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored that you want to listen to my stories. So mainly I am Malaysian. I'm 39 this year. Married. I don't have any kids yet. So let's start from say from my Nokia times. So I was an engineer in Nokia in Germany. So when I graduated, I started working there. I was an intern there for a year. Then I started I started my job there as an engineer. After I graduated, I was responsible mainly on the mechanical simulations. So we do a lot of simulations on the drop test. For my side was drop test and the reliability of all the mechanical components during stress tests and different kinds of reliability tests. So all kinds of tests you can think of that you need the phone to go through. And I was part of it, but I was mainly on the simulations part. So I sit in front of the computer very often. I work very closely with the mechanical team. So their designs all will go through me, and I will verify it for the prototyping. And then we go through different phases of the product development, and then we go step by step to bring the product to the market. So that was mainly my responsibility in Nokia. And then after that, I was retrenched. Actually, the whole site closed down in 2012, the Germany side. So I was I looked for a job, and then fortunately I got a job in Continental. So that it was I was part of the advanced drivers assistance team, also doing simulations. So I continued there until 2015, and I came back to Kuala Lumpur, to KL. And I understand most of you guys are from Singapore, so it's very nice to connect with everyone. And I hope I can share as much as possible, and just to get to know you guys, and also to introduce myself to the group, and so that we can just improve together lah. I think that's all from my side.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a lot for the introduction. I think that's quite details. Just curious, the simulations, right? Like, do you actually do most of it like on the software, or is it like really you have to like design how to do the drop tests, and then physically really drop all the phones and see how to make sure they survive better? Is it like like purely physical side, or it is like a software thing? Because I don't know at all on this. Just describe a bit.
Okay, sure. I'm glad to share. So it's like that. When I was in Nokia, we had a few build phases. Build, BUILD. So in the product development, we have roughly about 3 builds. So prototype builds. The last one, then only we will have the production build. So when we design the phone, usually I'm on the mechanical part, so I'm not very well versed in their software side. But in the mechanical part, it comes from the design team. So the design will be like a shell. So outside, how it looks like, right, will be coming from the designers, those people who do fashion and all those designers. And then when the mechanical team gets it right, then we need to integrate it to create a phone out of it. So we have like different covers. So we have the top part, and the bottom part. So usually we call it the A cover and a B cover. Sometimes there are three parts, so we call ABC. And then in between, usually there's a PCB board, and then there's a display, keyboard, the keypad, battery, and so on. So each has its own own small team in charge of it. So once the mechanical team gets that ready, right, for the first one, it's like a very rough design. And then I have to evaluate it. They will send me that one through the 3D file, and I will put it into my simulation software. I need to clean it up a bit. I need to put in my scripts. So there are certain scripts that our team builds it, and so that we can run the simulation almost autonomously. So what we do is mainly the first part is to do the drop test. It's on the computer. It's not physical. Because it's very early phase. We don't have the tools yet. So we do a rough design, and then I will run the simulation. So we started off. Usually we start with the drop test first, just to see how it performs, especially the hooking parts, the screws, and everything that the mechanical designer will just roughly agak, just put it there first, and then it will go through me, and I will run the drop test simulations. So it's simulations only lah. Then I also run a few like stress tests. So it's like the bending, twisting, and another team will do the thermal simulations. They do the heating up. Then another team will do the RF, the radio frequency, the radio simulations to design the antenna. So from my side, after we go through the whole thing, I will extract the results. So it's almost automatic, almost lah. Then I create the report. Then I will highlight parts where needs improvements, needs to change, or whatever that doesn't work at all. And I'll highlight to the team, and the team will then go to the second build, the B2. And then during the B2 build, usually it will be at the same time they will start to do a prototype tool for the suppliers to build the covers already. And at the same time, the next build improvement, while the suppliers are building their tools, it will go through me again, and then I will do the same thing again, see what's improving, see what's getting worse, and then the same thing again. Then we go to the B3 build. So B3 build is usually just fine tuning, and at that time I have a very robust model already, almost like the production model. And then they will start to manufacture it a small run, like maybe 1,000 pieces or so, like that. And once they get the 1,000 pieces, then they will go through assembly, the line. They will test, see any problems, and then at the same time I will also use that. I will then liaise now with the real drop test team. That means they will do the real drop test. They will already throw the device on the ground. I mean, not they do it like there's a machine and they do all the different testing, and then I will correlate with my simulations. So I will let them know that okay, this will happen, and then I will check how close it is to reality. Then we will all feedback this again to the last one, and then if everything goes well, then they will start producing it all. That's mainly the process. Usually it takes about 6 months from design to production.
Wow, so quite interesting. I don't know at all this like lengthy process behind the scenes, right? We look at the phone, so simple. Of course, we know they done this kind of drop tests. Even for car, also they will do all these tests, right? Make sure the safety. Yeah, quite interesting to know like what you take actually 6 months to make sure they are all like solid, rigid, right? But back
Yes.
then, it was mainly not like full screen type of phone, right? You were there 2012 around that around that. So it will be like what phones are those actually, like not full screen, right? Like
Yes.
those with keypad one, right?
Yeah. When I
Uh,
started, it was 2012. Sorry, 2008. At that time,
yeah.
iPhone just only announced something like that. But I was not in the smartphone division. So in Nokia, there are three divisions, mainly the smartphone, which is running the Symbian software. That was mainly in Finland. I was in Germany. It was the middle range one. So those running the S40 software. If you guys know about Nokia's history, so that was those, the 6 series, like 6230, 6310, or whatever, all those. Uh, and some of the 3 series, the 3310, the legendary 3310, that one come from my side as well. But I was not in charge of that lah. That was before my time. So uh, mainly we did not do any touchscreen yet at that time. There was no touchscreen. It was mainly keypads, and even the battery is removable.
Yeah, the 3310 is a legend. You drop it in the toilet, then you're not afraid of the phone broken. It's the toilet
Yeah, yeah.
problem. Legend.
We were very proud of that, actually, because it's true. The simulation files, that one, when I started, we actually used that as like a benchmark um to follow the design principles that we use in that phone now. But as time goes on, some of the design principles cannot be done already, because we need the phones to be very thin. So slowly, you can see that phones start to get easily broken. It's because of the thinness.
I see.
Mm.
Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Before we move on to the next section, we will talk about like the management, what happened during that time of But before that, any questions?
So,
So yeah.
Winsong here. So basically, you were at Germany since 2012, and the iPhone was already out for like maybe 2, 3 years already. So, what were your impression of the iPhone then?
Okay. I was in Germany since 2004. I studied there, and I started in 2008. So around 2007, I think they launched the first iPhone. At that time in Nokia, the it 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 was it felt that it's quite new, but we felt that it's not a contender, to be honest, at that time, because it doesn't have 3G, I think. And the we actually sort of heard, like, because we know what is coming from Nokia, right? We know that, okay, we're gonna have touchscreen, we're gonna have different kinds of phones with 3G and the 3.5G at the time. So we were thinking like, okay, that's quite fun from Apple. And we did not I think the management also did not really foresee that it will sell very well, because it's very expensive. It was very expensive at the time. And I mean, not really affecting the German side, because we were doing the mid-range phones. But from what I've heard, that we have a lot of exciting things coming up lah. So um, at the start, there was really not that much of an urgency to say that, oh, this will be, taking over the world or anything. Only during like 2010, if I'm not mistaken, roughly that time, when I think the iPhone, the next one, iPhone 4 or something, that came out, I don't know, the third one, I think around the third one, and then you started to see that, wow, it's getting more accepted. People feels that the Symbian software is not catching up. So it feels that it's lagging. No, a lot of like the not what people want. It's getting too complicated. People want the simpler, cleaner kind of phones. So only that time that I think the real problem the real problem was felt at that time. And then in the final 2 years in Germany, it was really like every day just a bit demotivating also lah, because we see that the management was not really driving us in the correct way. Everyone was like, what is going to do next? What are you going to do next? Something like that. But we just chug along. Yeah. Any you Anything you want me to add on, or was it clear?
Hi, top investing here. I just like to check, right? Understand BlackBerry is also at that point in time was also one of the so-called big mobile phone manufacturers, right? So I can understand why Nokia at the start didn't want to think that Apple was a contender. But how about BlackBerry at the time?
BlackBerry was also not really our contender, because I think at that time we thought BlackBerry was more in just the business space, and we also had the business range, the business model. Because if we look back in the Nokia times, when the heydays, right, Nokia has phones with every range, from kids to old people to business to fashion to whatever you can think of. The Nokia has it lah. So they did not really think BlackBerry will also be a contender. The BlackBerry might have its space, but it will not be eating up the market share as much as what we think lah. Even Palm came out with their phone as well. I think we took it. Because when we do designing phases, brainstorming, we also take competitors' phones to just play around and see what people are what they are doing. We break it down. We look at what they are using and so on. So at that time, for mechanical wise, right, actually Nokia was doing quite well. It's just, I think the software was really the problem that broke the camel's back lah. The straw that broke the camel's back.
Thanks.
Actually, on the software, I'm quite interested to know. I mean, right now, if we look at the current phones, they are all quite very powerful, right? Then we tend to take for granted. But let's say back then, right, like you explained just now, like let's say iPhone 4 versus Nokia phone at the time, right? Even before Microsoft took over, right? And then we already see that there's some sign that okay, Apple is coming after, grabbing market share. But just look at the software itself, right? What is the main factors that set, let's say, Apple or even Android apart? Is there something, or is there any specific factors, or there is none? It's just like overall kind of things.
I think from Nokia's point of view at that time, Apple had the advantage that they had only one product to maintain, which means that they built their operating system from the ground. They built from scratch, and they totally did not have anything that is legacy to pull them back. So the Symbian software was very old, and there were a lot of if you are in the software development, right, you can imagine that even for one phone to the other phone, right, although it's running the same Symbian, right, you have so many tweaks to do, because of the different hardware, the different camera, the different even the different chipset. There's a lot of tweaks to do. So I think Nokia stretched itself a bit too thin there, and I think the same is Android as well. But Android has a good base. It started with a very good code base. So I think the open source helped it a lot. Although Symbian is also sort of open source, but the amount of work to integrate this kind of different kinds of hardware and different kind of screen sizes, it really stretched the Nokia a bit too thin. And I can see this very apparently because we also get prototype phones to test. So we need to outside of our normal job, right? We get phones from different parts of Nokia to test, and we write bug reports as well. Then from the bug reports, right, I can see sometimes it's like this phone already before that got this bug, right? Another different phone, right, will have the same bug again. So that means that the software, the branches, right, is I think it's very disorganized. It's not as organized as it should be. So at that time, I think Apple had the luxury of having just one product, And after that, they started to do like iPad and everything. It's also actually from the main branch. So I think they only had 2 or 3, and they were very good at that to optimize their software to the hardware. Whereas for Nokia, it was really, really tough. So I think that was one of the main reasons. I think if you talk about capability wise at the start, right, Symbian could do quite a lot of things as well, but it's just that it's not built for touch interface. So there were a lot of under the hood tweaks, which caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think you brought out a good point on that. Even until now, you see Apple, they can sell so many phones, right? But if you look at it, um, even like whether it's iPhone 10, no, the latest one, whether it is with Pro or without Pro, with Max or without Max, they all feel the same, right? They all, in terms of
Yes.
software, they share the same code base. So I think that the one they don't have to stretch. This one is definitely some legacy problem of Nokia at the time. I'm not sure if not sure if the management is aware of the problem or not. This one, which is yeah.
They are aware. I mean, the software teams is definitely aware. It's just that we don't have time to change, because if we were to start something from scratch, right, it will take another 2 years or something like that. So there's no time already, because once they realize that this is a problem, it's too late. Even in in fact, at the final months, right, in 2000 and late 2011, in our mid-range phones, right, we are actually building a new OS from scratch. It's part of the Memo or Migo branch. So they wanted to do a very mid-range OS, but and then in 2011, actually the management actually approved a lot of new hires. So there were actually a lot of new colleagues came from all over the world. So we actually expanded. We actually rented a new building, and they started to push forward with this. However, June 2012, the management just said, no, stop everything, we are going to close. So that's the story that I want to talk later also lah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. My anyone have any question? If not, I'll just continue with
Maybe we
asking the next
move,
question.
move
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
towards the end of Nokia. So June 2012, you said that they wanted to stop the new branch or new office of new hires. So what did they do after that?
Yeah, in June 2012, they decided to close the Germany's site. It was I think it's a financial decision at first, because Germany was quite expensive to run. They wanted to move to China. They wanted to move our division to China. So Finland will stick with the very high-end phones, and then the mid-range will go to China. The very low range will go to India and China as well. So Germany was going to stop everything. Because actually we were doing the new software, but then at the end they say no, just stop it. There's no point going forward. They'll just like do simple phones. I'm not so sure also lah, actually at that time their announcement, it was a lot of management speak, and no direction. So the new hires, all everyone was shocked. But what I have to really comment on Nokia, I mean to praise them, is that they gave a lot of support, especially in June to September to October. So all of us in Germany, there's a minimum of 3 months notice. So we basically from June, July, August, September, there's like a lot of counseling, a lot of job interviews. They even did a job fair in our building. They invited different companies to come and just talk with us and see if we can fit into their company. And actually BMW came, took a lot of the software engineers. They even rented the new office that Nokia rented. They took it, and then they placed a whole new team there. They took a lot of people. So I was part of the Continental team, because Continental needed a lot of mechanical engineers and designers at that time. they are ramping up their autonomous driving sensors. So they took almost more than half of my same colleagues, my team. So I was fortunate to go there as well. The simulation team went as well. So three of us basically just moved the desk only. They even took the same Nokia site. They took half of it. So it's basically just like moving desks only. So they really supported us very well actually in the final 3 months. They give a lot of I mean, and it was also okay lah. I mean, you don't have much to do anymore. You are just like handing over stuff to the different sites, and then mainly we just like hang around. We even played Counter-Strike. We play Half-Life on the computers in our site, and we have very good computers. So we just just hang around.
Because
Was
at that
this
time already know, right? Closed down already. Yeah, Boon Song, go ahead.
was support between June to September? Is it something very unique to Nokia, or on the whole German companies tend to behave as such?
I think it's unique to Nokia because they actually said that don't just like take your holidays and just bye bye lah. They said we want to support you to transition, and we are going to invite a lot of companies to come and give you interviews. So then they also have like resume workshops, and then we had like small interview practice, job interview practice, all those, a lot of things. And they even like give a small budget to each team to like say, okay, do you want to like learn something new? Do you want to like learn how to write apps? Do you want to learn how to use this software or whatever? And they actually supported it lah. So, and they also give grants, and then this is something also very 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 nice. They actually give grants in the region of like 5 figures, 6 figure euros, to let you start a business. So it was really really amazing, but you need to have a business plan and everything. So that was very good of them.
Is that their long shot, long shot before they just run out, just whatever cash they have, they just distribute out and hope that who knows that these 6 figures turn out to be another successful ventures, Is that their
Yeah,
plan or no?
I think so, but I think I heard that there's no strings attached. It's just that you need to make sure that your business plan is sound. I have, I think, at least 2 colleagues who took up the offer, and they are doing quite well. They have a small company. One of them, one of this friend is his name is Soma Kantan. He's from Sri Lanka. He did his doctorate in Germany, so he's an expert in sensors. So those gyroscopic sensors and I think those MEM sensors or something like that lah. He's one of the experts there, and he actually took up the offer. He started a small business. He's doing like small accessories for phones. I think he did a Kickstarter as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's something that he took to start off lah. But I think Nokia just like gave it a grant. I don't think Nokia has a stake in his business lah. It's just like a donation or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that's nice. That's not too bad, working for a company that eventually uh bankrupt, right? I mean, they close down, right? Their main business. It's just that as an employees, that's actually not bad. Just one next question that I want to ask is that how would you describe the top management? Because like with a companies, which is a very successful company at one time, right? And then they just fail, right? I think most people will actually blame like, okay, this must be the top management's fault. So just want to hear your thought on whether like are they like very mission driven? Are they transparent with their employees? And then like as a general, like you are working there as an engineer, like do you know where the company is heading at the time, like throughout your tenure there?
Yeah. When I started, it was actually quite well. It was under the OPK. We call him OPK, Oli Pekka Carlos Fu or something like that. He was a Finn. He's a Finnish guy, and at that time it was okay. but he was not an engineer guy, so he was more like a finance lawyer guy, something like that, business run. he actually he actually made the company quite quite, what you call that, successful, in a sense that uh you have you are able to be, you are able to pump phones out lah. You are able to pump phones out, you can, at one time I think Nokia was like selling one phone every few seconds in the world. So it was really, at that time, he managed to do that lah, to expand. But then I think the innovation part lost a bit lah. There's no long-term vision lah. We were just like doing everything just a bit better every day, a bit better only. It's not like we are looking, okay, what's the next step? Do we really need to, totally change the way people interact with phones? And it was not there. But however, right, and sorry, and also when the company gets big, right, a lot of innovation also comes from the suppliers. It's not internally, which means that, you see, Nokia phones inside, right, the display is from Samsung, from Sony. The phones is from the battery is from also Samsung, LG. The PCB is from like some PCB supplier. The sensors are from another supplier, Flextronic or whatever, right? So the innovation actually comes from outside. So what we actually have is very rarely from inside anymore, because of the streamlining, the business, like, okay, this doesn't make money, right? Okay, no, let other people do, we just buy it. So I think that was also one of the reason that the company seems to like not be able to catch up anymore lah. And then the final years was because of the Stephen Elop from Microsoft, right? He came in, and I think at that time was the worst, because I think the Finnish management also didn't trust him, because he's American, so he's like an outsider just coming in. The Germans also like didn't really trust him. The Europeans didn't trust him. The Chinese also didn't trust him. So it was like hard to, everyone has their own agenda at that time, starting to have agenda already. So everyone, each division is like going their own way. So I think that was one of the main reasons. I wouldn't say the top management is only at fault, but I think it's because of the lack of vision, and then maybe the sort of demotivating sense of feel in the company just becomes a contagion, and uh, and everyone was just saying like, how come Apple can do it but we are not doing it, and then just gets demotivated lah.
Actually, this thing about like outsourcing, right? Basically, you are saying that they are outsourcing most of the stuff, including the part that really require innovations, right? So in a way, they are like working as a contractor rather than the tech company itself. So everything just contract out, let the innovations happening outside of their companies, right? So I
Yes.
just like wonder. I'm just curious because I observed that I think European companies tend to have this kind of like approach of business. Because I at least let's say comparing Tesla versus BMW, right, or Volkswagen, right? I think the European cars, they are also like that. I understood that it's very hard for them to cash out is because actually within the companies, right? Take Volkswagen for example, they don't know that much of stuff on. They actually like they want to implement something, they need to talk to their suppliers. And basically, they are depending on the suppliers to continue to innovate. So that's why I see there's some similarities between let's say Volkswagen and also Nokia at the time now. So do you have
Yes.
any comment on this? Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely true. I mean, when I after that, when I worked in Continental, right, I became a sort of supplier already, right? And actually we actually do more innovation in the supplier side than the companies themselves, like BMW or Toyota or Volkswagen. I was actually not surprised, because uh, it's the way it goes. When you become very big, right, you tend to have that ego. You can like say, I'm going to buy 5 million of these sensors from you. How come you don't do it? Why don't you just do it? And of course, sometimes they pay. Like sometimes, let's say Mercedes, let's say they say, okay, I want a new kind of camera with, let's say, better image processing, right? So instead of doing themselves, right, they will say, okay, I want a better image processing. Can you do it? How much? When? That's their ego. Once they reach a certain size, and I think in Nokia it's almost the same. We I think in the before my time when their high end phones were uh, were selling quite well, I think there was like a time where the innovation just stopped. They were just like saying, okay, we want this and we want this, or maybe Nokia was just like setting the requirements only, and then going to the supplier and say, hey, can you do this or not? Something like that. And if you cannot, okay, then let's compromise, let's do something less, things like that. They become a bit complacent. And I think the car industry before Tesla was also like that. They became a bit complacent because when you see cars, right, when you see, like every 2 years facelift, every 7 years a new model, it's almost the same, there's nothing very much new one. So I think that's the problem with our with the business model. But when you reach a certain size, right, you I don't know, maybe you become complacent or you feel that you are very comfortable and you just stop. You just become slow. Maybe that's inherent in every company.
Amen to that.
Hi, Darren.
Will
Yep.
you, let's say, coming from as an investor, we are all investor here. Do you think that the vertical integration approach, right, is the right approach? Let's say at least for tech companies, do you agree on that? And then do you like specifically when you're investing, let's say tech company, do you look for like whether they are vertically integrated? Or this is not at all like an issue, like because you experience Nokia, right? So you see the problem of all this outsourcing. Will you like avoid companies that do too much of outsourcing?
It 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 depends because sometimes you as a company, you can only vertically integrated to a certain extent.
Take your time. And
Yeah.
others, I will let you guys ask the next question. So I need to open up.
Yeah. Let's talk about the vertical integration first. To a certain extent, you can do, but it all depends on your talent, though, because when you get too big, right, sometimes people tend to just throw money at the problem and not really like looking at, can the employee do that thing, or can you be really um are you really competent in innovation? Because innovation is not something that uh you can teach. It's a culture that the company needs to inculcate, to have it. Because because vertically integrated sounds very nice, right? But actually it's a pain. It's really a pain because you need to have a lot of competence in every level. So what a company, the life cycle of a company, usually, like once they get too big, right, they will tend to outsource a lot of things. So they let people do because some other people can do it better. So then that comes the problem, because sometimes it's out of your control already. So I'm not a business major, so I don't really know. But from an engineer point of view, right? Uh, Vertically integrated can only really work if there is a culture there's a culture of like uh culture of not only innovation, like a culture of ownership in the company. That means, like, if you have a part, right? Like, let's say for a phone, you have a display, right? You must really know about the display, and you are not afraid to ask for help. You are not afraid to uh to learn new stuff. And also the company must give you the trust of being able to make decisions yourself, instead of everything. I need like, let's say I want to have a new thing in this display, right? I need to go through like three hours of meetings. I need to justify why do I want to change this. I have to do a lot of approvals to get the suppliers, or to buy new things. That is a whole culture thing that needs to have in the company lah. Because once it goes too many of these kind of hurdles, an engineer will feel very frustrated because, hey, I want to change this, but I need to go through like 2 days of meetings. I need to ask this. I need to ask, hey, where got budget or not? Where to buy? Or I want to go to China to look at the factory. You also need to get approvals from 3 people. You know, all these things will be detrimental to that kind of culture. So I think if you look back to towards, let's say, Tesla. I actually just listened to a podcast on the agile manufacturing. Right, they actually give a lot of responsibility to the smaller teams, so they own that kind of that part or that certain module, so that they have a certain freedom to hire, they have certain freedom to procure, they have certain freedom to, you know, have failures and to measure that against themselves. They do not always, you know, look at just the business side of things. They have a very clear vision, uh, you know, if it's for the improvement of the whole product, then just go with it instead of, hey, how much it costs, how long it's going to take, how you're going to do this, who's going to hire, who's going to do this, you know, those kind of culture is very important. So for vertically integrated kind of product development, right, there is a lot of things to consider. It's not for every company, I would say, not for every product also.
Kelvin and Bunti, if I can add a business perspective to Kelvin's point here, the vertical integration and also this culture. So another recent example you all see would be SpaceX and Blue Origin in the space industry. Blue Origin was given $2 billion of funding. SpaceX is given $200 million of funding. The culture to the employees in Blue Origin is this is the founder's leisure money, the spare change. Whereas for SpaceX, this was Elon Musk, all his money. Like, he's really given everything. And like what Kelvin mentioned earlier, when you have a lot of money, you can just go to a vendor, supplier, and say, give me something better. You can throw money. When you are scarce on money, you can't do that. And because you cannot afford many of the vendors, you actually have to go to the raw material suppliers instead. Like, go to the suppliers of your vendors to ask them, how do I build this? How do I build that? Can you show me? Almost like first principles thinking. And that initial culture, especially in the first few years of the company, helps a lot with also the mindset and of vertical integration. Because once they see that they can do it themselves, they have the confidence to vertically integrate more. So you see companies that do vertical integration, whether it's like Apple or Tesla or SpaceX, they keep on doing more and more of it, not less of it.
Yes, thank you, Darren. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, even like Apple, when they started off, it was not really they actually do a lot of things themselves. But to be fair also, they actually rely a lot on Foxconn at that time. So actually they took a gamble as well. Foxconn actually took a gamble with the first iPhone. But yeah, it paid off for them, and they really showed that they can manufacture very quality products. But of course, the pressure from Steve Jobs for the suppliers is also a different story lah. So I think the culture plays a very big part lah. That I totally agree with Darren.
Yeah, I think
So thanks for the pep talk just now. So just wondering that because we have seen so many good examples of companies that implemented the vertical integration mode, right? Like Apple and Tesla and things like that. So then how do you then judge that maybe a certain company may not fit for vertical integration mode? Like, how do you then judge that, okay, vertical integration is not a good value added proposition for certain companies?
I would say if the product, if let's say you want to decide whether vertical integration or not, right? It's very hard for an outsider to look into, in my opinion, because you never know really what is happening inside unless you really go and have insiders inside lah. Because let's say if there's no Tesla, right, you would think that the normal automakers are doing just fine. It's just you don't know. You as a consumer, right? You are just getting the products that people sell. So you really don't know how everything is being done, and you will think that that's the status quo. You will think that, okay, so the way that people produce this thing is just this way. So it has always been this way. So it's very hard to determine. If you were to look at, I think vertically integrated is not as easy as it seems lah. Some people say, hey, Tesla can do it. Why don't Volkswagen do it, or BMW do it? They have tried it to a certain extent as well, but I mean it's not as easy. But I think as people start to, as a younger generation starts to, be more willing to take risks, I think maybe a good gauge as an investor to see if a company is innovative, I would say don't just look at vertical integration, because sometimes vertical integration can also bite you in the ass. I would say look for the innovative culture. I mean, it's very subjective, but maybe the age of the employees as well. Look at it as well. I think that can help a bit more than just looking at their business model. I think so. I mean, I'm not really an expert in saying evaluating vertical integration or not to be good. I mean, there are companies who has been doing well with just just suppliers. I mean, like for example, uh, who's doing, let's say, consumer
TSMC.
goods. Uh, TSMC is not. TSMC
No,
is also doing quite a bit themselves, right?
no,
But
just
yeah,
just
the
now you said
machine.
the supplier, right? So for example, like Apple, right? They are not okay. They're doing a fair bit of vertical integration. For example, now they are designing their own chips, even for their MacBook, right? But then for sure they cannot vertical integrated everything. Just for example, like their camera sensors,
Yeah,
it's not done by themselves. It's all like pointed by one of the member, Shan, right? He said mainly came from Sony because they're so good at it, right?
yeah,
Then
yeah.
the manufacturing of their chip is also coming from TSMC, and both Apple is doing well, TSMC doing well. So it could be a successful partnership. It's just that I'm just thinking like for most companies, right? Like especially companies that are successful, they tend to because once you're successful, you just want to make numbers looks better, right? And how you do it is actually like through outsourcing, and then you can actually make yourself like asset light now, so you can see that the
Yes.
ROE improve. So I think given that there isn't that much of disruption going on, I think the natural tendency for most companies will be towards more and more outsourcing, which is what happened to like you mentioned Nokia, and also maybe the current ICE car makers, right? So I think that's the natural tendency. Just that we also need to be more to pay more attention to situation where when a company's outsource too much and then basically they don't know anything at all, just a contractor, that's the risk that they are running, because you just need
Yes.
one disruptor come in, then they goodbye already. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if you are talking about Tesla, right, they also have a fair bit of things that they don't do it themselves. I mean, it's impossible in this day and age to actually do everything in-house anymore. So of course, like you see, like the cameras, they actually don't do it themselves. The radar, they don't do it themselves. It's just impossible for them to do everything themselves. But what they are not afraid of is that if the suppliers cannot supply them what they want, then they do it themselves, which is not every company can do it. So an example is, like for example, the seats of Tesla, right? No car company does it themselves one. It's all from a supplier. So but Tesla does it because they couldn't find a supplier that can provide them. And I think that also because of the circumstances that they were in when they started off with the I think the Model S or something, right? They just don't have the volumes. Imagine if you are a startup company, right? A car, you go to a car seat company. You say, hey, I want like 20,000 this year. They won't layan you, because they are booked. They will say, just for you 20,000, I need to do a different design. You take this one, you take Mercedes one, you take Volkswagen's one. So that is a problem as well. So I think Tesla is also like a fortunate fortunate enough to be under that circumstance when they started. So they were forced to do it themselves. So very, very lucky that they got the talents to be able to do it themselves, and they got the management that can trust their employees to, okay, you do it yourself and then see how it goes. Not every company can do that, and not every employee is willing to do that, because your job is on the line. If you if you if you say, hey, I want to do the seats myself, right, and then you have never touched a car seat, not everyone will be willing to get their hands dirty and say, hey, let's go and cut cow leather and make a seat, right? So that's something that is that's why it's a culture thing also in the company, and also the environment that allows it to happen, whether for good or bad.
Yeah, that's very good point. Actually, just want to come back to Nokia.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
my question want to ask, what are the, like, you work there and then okay you left, right? Just want to know, like, from insider versus like the news from outside, right? You know people always joke about, like, I think Nokia is like epic case study. Whenever people talk about, okay, when you fail innovations, then basically the business is gone. I mean, people always take Nokia as examples, right? But just want to understand from you as an insider, right? What are the, like, the main misconceptions that people have towards Nokia? Like anything like could be like a general understanding on the product, the technology, anything like that you always need to explain to your friends again and again, but only lah, because you're an insider. You have any
Yeah.
examples?
I think in general, Nokia is actually a very, very good company. I would say almost top there in terms of like taking care of their employees, and also their vision towards connecting people, to have everyone being able to speak to each other and to talk to everyone, because we actually also focus a lot on the emerging markets. If you are actually looking at currently the underserved market, right? If it's not because of if there's no Nokia, right, African people now would never be able to afford a phone. So at that time, Nokia really, like, we serve everyone. So you are able to get a phone everywhere. And another misconception is that some people will say, hey, Nokia is not innovative. Actually, we have a lot of innovations inside. But what the problem is that there's no like a vision, there's no like one person to say, okay, this is where we are heading. Let's go towards that goal, and everyone, do this. It's like, instead of that, we have like pockets of people doing innovations, but then a lot of them, when they go to a higher level of management, the management will say, nah, this is useless, or this costs too much, or this doesn't make sense, and then just throw it at the side, So that's a sad thing, and that's also because maybe outside people don't know, but a lot of engineers, for me, we also have a lot of freedom. They actually same like I think if you are in Google or whatever, or some Silicon Valley startups, right? They also say, hey, you have like 1 day of free time every week or something to do your own stuff. We in Nokia, we also have that. So I actually was in a part of a team to improve the UI for the lower end phones. We actually created. I've got no UI experience. I've got no software experience, but I just I want to learn. So I just like join a team and say, hey, I want to try just to see how people design UI. So we actually like a small group. So we just create UI prototypes. We create different kinds of buttons, different kinds of interactions, just to see what can be done with the current hardware. So we just take a phone from the line, or anything that is thrown away, right? We just build we just say, hey, can we do this with a different software or whatever? We do a lot of things, but then because of the lack of like a vision, right, all this is just like hobby only. It became just like a hobby. So it never go past the, hey, let's make this into the product. So I think it also happens, there's a lot of I'm pretty sure my colleagues in Finland, in China, they also have their own teams like that. But it's just that maybe some got through, some went into production, but there are some very exciting ones. It's just like just stopped because it was not like part of the direction. So it's hard to organize, I know, because everyone is doing their own stuff, but everyone is doing their own stuff because there's no direction. So we just don't know what to do. So I think that's also a problem. And then we don't have that ownership of this innovation. It's like, let's say there's a product in the market, right? That we see, hey, this button or this something is not doing well, right? We want to improve this, but actually it's not as easy as it seems. It's not because the line is moving. There's no such thing as there's changing just a small thing just to improve the product that's already on sale. So there's no such thing. And then once we go to the next one, it's already like a totally different thing already. And then your innovation will most likely not help anymore because of firstly the short lifespan of a mobile phone, and also it's just not feasible not feasible in our company at that time.
Wow, that's a good one. So there's enough innovations, just not enough focus or mission or visions,
Yeah.
and you're fighting with Steve Jobs, right? Which is like number one visionary leaders, right? So tough
Exactly.
job. Yeah. Any questions from the floor?
I mean, if you say lah, let's say if I ask you what is the top innovation of Nokia? It's very hard to say, because there's actually nothing really lah. It's actually a lot of small things, but I don't know. Maybe I think the one of the greatest thing that Nokia did was just like bringing mobile phones to the masses.
Yeah,
Just
that's true. But
one observation with the relevant question. So, all of us here who are investors, and all of us are employees of companies as well. The employees of the company will typically know what's happening to the company 3 years from now, that the general public will not. So that same company could be in front of Forbes saying best company, best leadership, everything, but the employees are the one who really knows what's going to happen 3 years from now, whether it's very successful or it's going to be a very catastrophic failure. And I think talking to the employees of the company can give you very big signals of where it's heading to.
Yeah, I agree, Darren. I mean, definitely when I was in Nokia, we also know the direction, but I think we ourselves, in the Germany side, we were actually quite confident with our mid-range products because we're actually not competing with the iPhone. What we were actually very frustrated was with the lack of direction in the high-end market. But well, if you were to ask me when I was still in Nokia at that time, right, whether Nokia will succeed, to be honest, I would say 50-50 at that time. Still, there's a chance 50-50 because of what we are actually doing. Actually, I was actually fairly confident with the final rush before we were announced to we because they announced that we were to close. We actually did the software for the lower end, the mid-range phones. The software was actually quite good. I mean, for that period of time, and it can run on a very low end chipset and very very battery saving as well. So it has like that smartphone feel. You at that time you cannot run like those games or whatever lah, but if you were to sell this to like India or Africa or maybe China, it could sell very well. No, I think the target at the time we were even like targeting below 500 ringgit. I think about 100 euros or 80 euros only at the time. And we were working with a lot of constraints, so there were a lot of innovations trying to take the most out of the hardware. And we actually use a lot of principles from the first iPhone, because the first iPhone, they couldn't do multitasking and all those things, right? They have tricks to go around it, and we actually learned a lot from there. And we actually brought sort of the first iPhone feel to a sub 100 euro phone. but unfortunately it was cut.
And I think to Unti's earlier question about a common misperception, the thing with companies that people normally remember the last 1 or 2 years of what happened in the company, but they forget about the multi-year, the decades-long legacy of whether it's connecting people, like Kelvin said. Or back then, like all of us, we were super comfortable with our phones. We throw it in a bus, we drop it on the floor, no problem at all, as Unti mentioned. And I think that is something that maybe not a misconception, but it's definitely forgotten in today's generation. So it's a very skewed story because we only hear the end. We only read the final chapter of the book. We don't read the rest of it.
Yeah. Right now, the most indestructible phone I think is still the 3310. This one for sure. lah. my first phone is Nokia. I don't know about you guys. lah. My first phone is Nokia 3350. I still remember.
Same.
Yeah. Kevin, just want to ask you, like, what happens with the Microsoft? Like, I recall that they are in some sort of partnership because they want Nokia to help them run the Windows OS, right? And then that eventually lead to take the acquisitions. And then what was happening there? Is there any stories to share?
Yeah, at that time, Microsoft came in. I mean, it was actually they say the CEO was a Trojan horse, Stephen Elop. So he was actually from Microsoft, and then I don't know why the Nokia board decided to hire him. And he actually shoehorned the Windows OS, I don't know what it's called, Windows Mobile or something, into the body of I can't remember the model anymore. Is it N9 or something? Very nice phone. If you look at the phone, right, there's no seams, If you I don't know what's the model anymore lah. They have the very nice color one. So they actually shoehorn it inside because that phone itself was supposed to run on if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to run on the Memo platform. But I think they didn't manage to do it. They run it on the modified Symbian, if I'm not mistaken, a very long time ago. But just talking back to the Microsoft partnership, right? I would say it was a stopgap measure. I don't think it was a long-term measure because there were the roadmap. At first, there were no. I mean, they didn't even change the roadmap after that. It was just like let's shoehorn this Windows mobile thing and then see if people can accept it. And then in the end, even Windows didn't really do well, so they just stop it lah. I mean, after that, so you don't see it anymore, right? So I think it was a bad move from the top. I think they were getting pressured by the shareholders. They were a bit scared that Nokia itself cannot have something that is futuristic enough or exciting enough to show the consumers.
Not confidence, I think, right? They already feel like, okay, they are threatened already at that point. So just want to salvage, well, whatever they can. So
Yes,
the
because
decisions making also, yeah.
Yeah, because the Symbian, as I said, right, it was very old, and then there were a lot of effort to integrate it into the newer hardware, into the into the touch interface, and there were so many things to do. So they thought, okay, let's just get the Windows on it because Windows is the Windows Mobile was started with the touch, right? So they thought, okay, let's do this and see how it goes.
No question. I hear something. I think I have no more questions related to Nokia lah. About what about you guys? If not, we can ask some other questions. Maybe some more personal questions. Because I'm interested to know, like, before that, just to ask any more Nokia questions, Nokia related questions.
I'm actually curious about the software. So a lot of the issues that you mentioned, I was thinking it's quite related to software. So for example, when you push out the phone, you cannot update the UI UX even though you feel that something could have been done better. Then also basically the touchscreen feel basically my N97. So that's what I wrote. Basically, the scrolling just wasn't fluid enough as compared to the iPhone. Like the iPhone was totally fluid. Then you have feels like a copy and paste of the keypad onto a touchscreen device. So what was the sort of attitude towards software in the company that you can feel that is a warning sign at the time?
Yeah, I think it is this problem is apparent in every employee actually during Nokia times, because the Symbian OS was just not built for touch, and a lot of that was just being just adapted to show that it can do touch. If you like you said, when you were in the N97 times or N95 as well, so I think was also like touch. I'm not sure anymore, but yeah, the scrolling was not good because it was not made for touch. It was made for keypad. When you click 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 click, it goes down. So it's not smooth. That's definitely true. And then also there's a problem of the resistive technology of the screen. So that was also uh not made for touch, and resistive technology cannot do multi touch, right? At that time cannot, but now can, the resistive, but nobody is going to use resistive technology anymore. So the it was more or less trying to oops, sorry, it was more or less trying to putting an old thing into a new device and hoping that you can modify it. So that was mainly just because uh Nokia didn't have time to do something from scratch, because someone has done it, and everyone at first thought, okay, Symbian can do it as well, but they didn't foresee that uh, the experience is totally bad. I mean, the experience is really really bad because it's not built for that.
Okay.
I
Next
mean,
question from me again.
yeah, let,
Go
let me
ahead.
let me add something. I mean, do you know what is the most when we actually saw the presentation from Steve Jobs, right? The most amazing part was actually when he used two fingers to pinch the zoom. That was actually the most mind-blowing part if you are at that time doing software, because at that time it's just not in the software that you can detect 2 points. So I mean, how can Symbian do it if it's not inside? So, and then when you want to like shoehorn it into the software, right? It's just a lot of work. So because it's not in the first vision, it's not like 10 years ago or 20 years ago someone were to think that, hey, let's do two fingers and then zoom and all that, because everything was in the keypad. So that's the issue lah. And there's just simply no time to just stop everything. Okay, let's do a totally new software. It's just impossible lah at that time.
I still remember.
Mentioned that, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So because you talk about the software portion, so you mentioned that at the end they really tried to do it, but why couldn't they do it earlier, or why couldn't they follow through? Because sometimes the follow through question is also very difficult. Like, when should you cut loss? When should you maybe switch an approach? So do you have any experience with that?
Yeah. When we were because my site was in the mid range, so when Apple came out the iPhone, right, it was, I mean, it was not in the uh in the in the roadmap that the mid range will do a smartphone. The mid range will not be able to like have 4G connections. We will not be able to have a very nice touch screen, because everything is expensive at that time. So only in the final like 2 years, final year actually, 2011 for my side not Nokia's final year. Actually, Nokia is still doing a bit of phones, but at that time at my side, only in 2011 that they started to think, okay, we should start doing a sort of almost smartphone for the €100 and below market. So then only we started to develop from scratch. Actually, it's very impressive that we managed to do it from scratch. And in I think about 5 or 6 months, we had a almost usable kind of prototype ready. But unfortunately, it was still too slow. And I wouldn't blame my colleagues lah. I would say I blame this one. I would say I blame the management because they didn't see early enough to say that, okay, we should also do a cheaper version or something that can be done in the low end. Maybe the communication broke down a bit because maybe the managers, they didn't know that it's possible. They thought that it's not possible, so they didn't talk to the engineers. And the engineers maybe at that time didn't know that we were going that way. We thought that only the high end will be doing smartphones. But in the end, it was an effort a bit also from the engineers to show the manager that says, hey, we can actually do this on a cheaper hardware as well. So why not we do it? So actually we did it. They actually gave a bit of confidence to us because we hired quite a lot. It's really amazing at the last year that there are so many colleagues, new colleagues coming in, and that just doing a lot of things, and mainly software engineers. And unfortunately, it was didn't pan out at the end. I still remember we didn't have enough office space. They actually brought in containers
Containers for what?
for the office,
office setup.
for my colleagues. Yeah,
Huh?
before they
Wow.
managed to find a place to rent nearby, they ship in containers, just slap air conditioning, heating, and desk and everything. Just go in and do first for a few months.
Wow, that's interesting. Is it allowed in Germany? Later, government have problem with that.
They actually do have containers like certified to be office space. They actually do have it.
That's interesting. Actually, my next question is I want to ask, like, given your experience with this episode with Nokia, right? It's also not short, right? Like, few years, and then you see
4 years.
during the good time, 4 years, you see the good time, and then you see how they didn't manage to pull it off, and then how would that affect your investing or your mindset in terms of like looking at companies?
I would say it's very hard. Different companies have different ways, but if I were to say looking at companies, I would say maybe this is a very, very hard question though.
Or maybe I can change it slightly. What have you learned like from this entire experience? What was the main takeaway?
The main
Can be
takeaway is, I
personal,
think,
can be management. Yeah.
No, I think when a company gets too big and becomes complacent, I think you should be careful with investing.
Okay. Then a bit like personal for me, right? Is there any big companies that you are seeing that you think they are maybe already towards these directions? Like, let's say the FANG stocks and any of them.
If you were to say, just right off my mind now, would be the legacy automakers, like
Okay.
Volkswagen. I've worked with very closely with Toyota, with BMW, and Mercedes, so I know their culture more or less. If you were to ask me who would survive I would say Volkswagen most likely will survive in Germany, most likely. BMW, they may have the niche, but they will not be as big as they are. Mercedes maybe, but they are already spinning off their different divisions. They are trying to slim down also. I think Volkswagen can survive. They have the volumes, they have their range, they have their brands, so I think they can survive. If you want to say about Toyota, I've worked with them. I think they are actually very slow. You can see that they are very good in manufacturing. They are very good in doing a lot of stuff very precise. Their quality is very good, I would say. But unfortunately, working with them, I don't really have confidence in them being agile enough. Because when I worked with them before, I was designing, I was helping with their radar and cameras. They are firstly very conservative. So they don't want to take like newer technology. They want to take the proven technology. They are also very meticulous with documentation. I don't fault them, but sometimes it's too much. And I also don't like the way that they don't give trust to their engineers. Maybe it's their Japanese culture lah. Because in every meeting, right, there are definitely like 2 more managers above the engineer. We can never have a meeting with just engineer talking and making changes and agreeing to stuff quickly. Must definitely will have at least 2 managers beside, and then they were like, oh, height, yeah, height, like you have to like get the approval there to answer my question and things like that. So I think that culture is quite bad for them lah. But it has worked out for them so far, but I don't know it will work in the future or not lah.
Interesting. Maybe the one that having meeting with you, they still have to come back. Let's say any technical question, they still have to ask their engineer, then revert back to you. So all this increase the frictions, I think. Yeah.
Yes, actually not really. The engineers are smart. They are smart. It's just that if you ask them about anything that you need to change, or let's say, okay, we cannot do this. We need to use a different screw lah, for example, right? The engineers cannot really do the decisions themselves, you know. They cannot say, okay, let's do this, and then we will see how it goes or what. No, they have to say, okay, I ask my manager. You know, it's like so frustrating. I mean, the way they work is like they are so afraid of making decisions. So I don't know. I mean, the engineer is smart. I don't. The Japanese are smart. It's just that the culture of needing to ask permission from 2 or 3 people is like so weird.
Weird and slow things down.
Yes, they slow down. You know how much documentation I need to do, and I'm not in the design, you know, I'm just the simulations. And then when simulations, when let's say for example, sometimes we need to share parts to save cost, right? Let's say Toyota wants to have a different screw, right? And then because our part, let's say we supply to BMW and Mercedes, we have this certain screw. And then for Toyota, they need to have a different screw because they have a different bracket or whatever. The amount of documentation I do, right, is like at least 1 day of engineering time, you know. And it's not like it's not like just it's just like a click of button. It's like so many repetition, and then you cannot imagine the amount of paperwork just for like a small change. That's their way of production lah. I mean to save their asses also lah, because when there are insurance problems or you know things like repairs or everything, there's a paper trail. But I think it's a bit too much because if BMW can do it in a simpler way, Mercedes can do it in a simpler way. I don't see why Toyota still needs to go through like 7 pages of for documentation just to change one small part.
Yeah,
Maybe
different,
this
right?
one
Scale
all
also
comes
different.
to the responsibility lah. So that means if you trust your engineers, you give them the responsibility, but they also need to be able to say, okay, I have to take the blame lah. But then if you keep seeing misaligned blame, so like you cannot blame, but then actually it's not within your control, it's also very sian lah. So then they might have that culture of, okay, I need to document tons of shit.
Yes. I think it's also because of their manufacturing processes. I think Toyota has like a failure. Their aim is a failure of 1 billion parts to one. 1 billion. That's a lot. They can only have one fail in 1 billion. So that is, I think, their way of doing things.
Just now we discussed Nokia. We basically say that okay, the reason they are not able to compete is because on the software side, right? So
Mhm.
do you think that, let's say for auto industry, right, is it like software is still the make or break kind of things for automakers, or maybe the manufacturing is very important as well, so maybe software not so important? What's your take on this?
I think now is software is getting more important now. It's getting more important because if you go to EVs, right, I mean the mechanical parts is also getting less. I think in the future, and electric motor is actually a very simple part. It's just a rotor, magnets, and wirings and so on. Whereas if you talk about engines, right, you can see how complicated it is. So I think software will be the sort of differentiator in the future. And but of course, a car is not just a product. I mean, a car sometimes is a reflection of the consumer. So I think design plays a very big role as well. So I think there will still be like luxury cars, the niche, like if you are talking like, sometimes a Ferrari, is still a different kind of product. There's no other replacement. So there is still that kind of market. So if you're talking like mass market, right, I think software really plays a more and more larger role.
And on this part, I think Toyota will suffer more, right, compared to the others. And, and next question is, okay, Tesla, we all know that they are very good with all this software and they do it in-house, right? Like then other companies, for example, like Mercedes, all this, I think not sure about Volkswagen. At least Mercedes, I know they are partnership with Nvidia, at least on their like the software part, right? Self-driving, all these things. Do you think that, okay, how do you assess the competition between, let's say, Tesla versus like Nvidia with all this partnership, like Nvidia, Mercedes partnership? Do you think they are good or
Uh,
eh,
I think they lack the vision. The same thing. They lack the vision. They don't have like a CEO on top. Like say, okay, then I want I think the car must be like this, and then they lack that kind of leader where he knows he can envision what kind of car comes out, because currently it's like a lot of them are like designing by like committee. If you go to if you know how BMW works, I'm more well versed in BMW because I have friends there. They actually have like inner contests. They have contests between their designers, and the management just choose, instead of the management say, okay, we need to move this direction, we'll do something as a whole package. But instead they will let the designer like they have two or three designer teams, and then say, okay, 1 month you go and come up with a design, and then we'll pick the best. So it's like very weird way of working. I mean, it worked for them for a few times, but things happen. That's why you see BMW designs is getting weirder and weirder, right? Because it's like I don't know what they are doing. There's no really direction. So the grill just gets bigger and bigger. I think the only design constraint is say that you must have the grill and just run wild. So that's a problem there as well, I think. That's what I heard from my BMW colleagues. But don't get me wrong, they have very smart people inside. It's just that sometimes when a new company comes, and then they found a way to really change the way things work, right? The bigger companies will have a tough time adapting, because times change, and who knows? I mean, maybe Tesla will one day lose a lead on something else. Someone will come up again. We don't know. But currently, you are saying like, yeah, it's really uh there's a lack of sort of like a vision in a lot of companies. There's a lack of a lot of a vision. That's what I see. So even if you look at, they are just like, they are, if you listen to BMW previously, I think 1 or 2 years ago, they actually on the shareholder meeting, they actually say, we will do the engines, we will do the electric vehicles, we will also do hydrogen, we will also do the hybrids. I mean, if you listen to things like that, right, it definitely does not reflect well on the management, because they are not sure where to go. They are just saying we will do everything. But when you are an engineer, right? If you are on the side of you are in the division where you know you're going to lose, especially like you are doing engines, right? You know that in 2 or 3 years you are not going to be doing anything anymore. You are not going to work as well as you could. So I think that's one of the problems.
I just want to add to Kelvin's point on vision. Two examples, right? One Tesla, or SpaceX, since we're talking about these businesses, like visions don't always need to be very detailed or very prescriptive. It can be something as simple as, for SpaceX, we are going to Mars. The rest of you decide how we get there. Or for most of us here in Singapore, it was Lee Kuan Yew's time, we said that this country is not going to fail. It's going to survive, it's going to thrive. And that's a simple vision that just rallied everyone together for decades.
Yes, Darren, I totally agree. Because when you listen to like Volkswagen or Mercedes or any other company, sometimes their vision is so vague. It's like all marketing only. There's no like real call to action, something to really strive for. And that's one of the issues as well. I think last few days ago, someone asked me what was my last day, right? I want to share how was it.
Yeah, that one. Please share.
Yeah. So quite a fun story. I mean, I actually came back from vacation in June 2012. I just proposed to my wife, and then I just came back from my vacation. I was actually late because they sent out the email that there will be an announcement, that a town hall meeting. So I didn't check my email because coming back from vacation. So I just go into my office, and before I went in, right, I was seeing like, why is everyone like outside? So when I, when I came out, and then they will say like, hey, we just closed down. Then I was like, really? Closed down? And then there were like some it was very surreal. I mean, we were just like before I left for vacation, right? It was like no news at all, nothing, just every day doing the same stuff. And then when I came back from vacation, it's like then we are closing down. And then there were some colleagues who were a bit like down, and some were like in tears. So it was quite sad to see. But then one of our the country manager, she was quite good lah. Then she said that don't worry, we will help everyone. And then okay, let's go to the beer garden. And then really we like 200 of us just went to a beer garden. And then we just just talk lah, just say whatever we want, just talk with the management. And then that was the day. That was the day that they announced. And I was also quite shocked at the time. I didn't really know what to do, because this was my first job, and I've never really like went to a proper interview before. And so then I went home, I told my wife. Then we just like thought, okay, I have 3 months. At least we had a 3 months transition because of the notice period. So they didn't ask us to like go on garden leave or just clear your leave. So they said we will be having like some announcements in the coming weeks. So please just take it as usual. Do whatever you can to finish up whatever you have. Just continue as usual first, and then we will have announcements. Then after that, they started to have like negotiations with the work council about the compensation. And then they talked about doing job fairs, giving counseling, training. And then they are talking to different companies to come in to give job interviews, job fairs. And we were fortunate that BMW was looking for software engineers, so we had a very talented team there. So they took a lot of them. And then Daimler also came in. Daimler was just sort of neighbor close by, so they also took a few of our colleagues. Some of them went back to university. Some started to look for jobs. Some even took like early retirement and things like that lah. So for me, for my team, we were relatively young, and then we just took it with stride. And then I talked to my colleagues like, uh, how should we proceed? So they were also saying that let's see how it goes, lor. See how we can find new jobs, or like if we can, we try to keep in touch, those normal stuff. And then fortunately, they managed to contact Continental, where they were the Continental team was doing the uh, sensor system, the advanced. We were in the ADAS team, ADS, the Advanced Drivers Assistance. So they were a startup. They were part of Siemens VDO, and then they just got acquired by Continental, and then they want to ramp up. So they were very inexperienced in the mass production of this kind of sensors. So fortunately, our team was very well versed in the mass production of mechanical. It's like basically like a mobile phone, because like radar, they have an antenna. So we have the covers, and then we have a PCB in the middle. We have connectors. Basically the same thing. So they hired most of us lah. So it's also like just a formality, some interviews, negotiation of salary and so on. And basically around September, July, no, August time, most of us already got secured our future lah. So it was very, very nice. And then in September, I cleared my leave. I went back to Malaysia for a while. And October, I started in the new job. And it's basically just moved my desk only. It's just the same office. They took over half of it, and started a new career in Continental, which was also very interesting. Managed to get into the automotive industry from the supplier side, and learn a lot as well. And maybe that's another story lah.
I think we definitely need another separate story to talk about automotive. This one we cover a bit here a bit, there a bit. I think, but
Yeah.
definitely another time for because I know you're quite passionate about Tesla also, right?
Yeah.
Is that the company that you are most bullish about now?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Inside our group here, actually quite a number of Tesla bulls here.
Mhm.
Not all. There are some not as bullish. So sometimes there's also some discussion, a
Sure,
bit
yeah.
of disagreement. Those are also quite normal, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is healthy. I mean, otherwise you're just like in the echo. You're saying good. Everyone say, yeah, you are very good. It's not healthy. So I think it's very healthy discussion. I mean, sometimes you miss something, and you do consider, and it's encouraged. I think it's very encouraging to have that.
If not, everybody falls into their own bias. That's the beauty of investing. There must be there shouldn't be consensus all around. There should always be objectivity and the allowance for opposing parties and their views, because that's where we can protect ourselves from our own blind sides as well.
Yeah, exactly, John. I mean, if even investing itself, if you want to buy a share, someone has to sell, right? If no one sells, that means it just doesn't work, right? So when you buy, someone must be selling.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned this. So on Thursday, I met one of the directors of a public listed company I shall not name, and I was asking him, because this is a big portion of my portfolio for my Malaysian portfolio, and I joked with him. I said, Mr. So and so, the share price never moved. I said, yeah, lor, you go and see our investors all holding 5 years, 10 years, no one wants to sell. That's why the share price cannot move. So you see, even though you have bulls, but these guys are all holding long term. You cannot even realize the value that you want. So, just to echo what you said.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I'm opening. See, anyone's have any more questions to ask, because the session start at 9 o'clock now, already like more than 1.5 hours. So maybe last 1 or 2 questions, because it's not getting too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone questions?
I do. Actually, you were working 2008 to off, right? I wonder what is it like working during the great financial crisis, especially in a big company like Nokia at that time?
It didn't really affect Nokia at that time. We were actually having one of our best years at that time, so it didn't really affect us. Not in the mobile phone industry lah, because it was booming at that time. When I actually graduated in 2008, I was actually afraid I couldn't secure a job, but fortunately, I was hired before I graduated because I did my internship there, and I did my final year thesis also with cooperation with Nokia. So they basically, the manager said, "Hey, you are already a good fit. So just get into the team. I mean, you are doing what we need, and then you just come in." For the, let's say, the whole country wise, there were, I think, mainly affected were the banks, the financial part, and also some of the property sector, they were affected. I think at that time, uh, for technology, not really affected. The car industry that time also, I didn't hear any big problems.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing. Then actually, like I was looking at Nokia share price actually. I was wondering because you guys were given shares, right, as part of your
Yeah.
compensation plan. So I wonder if that had any effect in your morale, especially when the price keep dropping from 2000 and I think 2008 onwards, all the way to a low of $2. I think the all-time high was 38 at 2007,
Yeah.
and then went all the way to $2 at 2012. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
was wondering like if it affect the morale of the employees and all.
Yeah. For me, it didn't really affect much because I got very little. I think I got about 500. No, I got 1,000 shares at that time. It was, when I got it, it was options, so it has to vest in 2012. Luckily, it vested before they closed, so I got a bit. I sold half so that I can exercise the half, and I'm still holding it now. I got 500. I didn't really look into it much, uh, but for me personally, it didn't really affect me much because it was just a small amount. But maybe some managers, they held a lot more. I don't know, because it's not no, but we don't ask around who has more shares or what. But it's not normal to get shares. So you need to have a certain performance, and then you need to sort of like contribute. I mean, you have to be a bit above the bell curve, sort of like that. And you have to be like recommended, and then uh you have to be you have to be they have like certain threshold you need to go. So I was fortunate to get that in my second year, and it need to vest 2 years. So in 2012, something like that, then just in time, just in time. But our compensation itself was already quite good, because Nokia is not like the US companies where they give a lot of stock options or all those things. So I don't think it affected the morale much. It's more like just a small bonus. Because normally we get performance bonus already. So I would say it didn't affect much. I don't think that's the main issue of the morale.
Any more
Yeah,
questions
anything?
from anyone? Okay. I think late already. 10:42.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot to Kevin for sharing so much. I think this type of stories, insiders, right? Especially Nokia, right? It has been like already out of the market for so long, right? I think we can't get it from someone else. You are the only one that can share this. Really, thanks a lot, and also really appreciate all the sharing with regards to auto industry, because this is I think quite a number of us actually have exposure to Tesla. We also want to know like how are they going to do, right, their competitions. Maybe next round we'll definitely do another round to
Sure.
talk specifically on this. Yeah. So I will schedule with you.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm honored. I honored to share. I mean, this kind of stories, it's fun to share, because It's not I mean, not to say to brag or everything, but I think it's a good exposure. I mean, I'm also quite keen on learning, like, what is it to work in another industry, and how other countries, you know, like how Malaysia treats their employees, or how does it feel like to work in Google or Amazon or whatever. So it's always very fun to listen and to learn.
Yes, definitely. All right, then I think thanks a lot, and we'll close the call for tonight. And thanks everyone for joining and contribute the questions. I think those are very good questions.
Thanks
Thanks
for
a
being a
lot.
great host, Bunty.
Good night,
And
everyone.
thank you, Kelvin, for sharing.
Okay, thank you
Thanks
everyone.
for
Thank you.
sharing.
Bye bye.
Kelvin.